I'll feed anybody, but I'm not for everybody. My name is Chef Derek Green, and I find people that have turned their life's experiences into ingredients they use to feed others. We're redefining soul food. These people have turned their adversities into their advantages. This is the Sauce of Life show, and let's go. Coach Brock Zivan, welcome to the Sauce of Life.
What's up, brother? How we doing?
Man, I'm blessed. Brother, the Sauce of Life is truly about people that have turned their life's experiences into ingredients that they now use to feed others. It is what are the things of your life, the experiences that you've had that you now use to give back. With that being said, Brock, please introduce yourself to the world.
What's up, man? Well, as you said, I am Brock Zivan. I am calling or zooming, or not even zooming, I guess streaming here from Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm originally from New York, upstate New York, the farmland. That's part of my story, a little bit about my growth and where I started. But yeah, I'm down here in Charlotte. I'm a real estate agent, life coach, business coach, real estate agent, and a DAD, as I say on my podcast. That I've been blessed and fortunate to have you on. It is one of our leaders on our show, and so yeah, I got two amazing kids. I got a 6-year-old son, Bryce, a 12-year-old daughter. They've had impacts in my life in different points and different parts of it. They are some of my defining moments on what's helped me get to where I am today. And just very blessed and fortunate to be able to be here and to share with you some of these real fun moments in my life. But they're all part of the journey that God put me on.
Man, let's talk about that beautiful journey, bro, because as I know from things offline, God has tested you. He's put you in some rough waters at time, and you've pushed through. And now you have a platform. You have several platforms, but you're constantly in. It seems a perpetual motion of giving back to others. Where does that originate? Did you have that as parents, or talk to me about your early life?
So yeah, my dad was constantly on that. He constantly was giving back. He was always volunteering, whether it be in the school systems. So I'm the oldest of five. So and we are all within 6 years of each other. So
Oh,
God bless my parents that they were in diapers for about 10 to 11 years, constantly. I don't know how they did it. I really don't. Coming as being a parent now, I'm like, Mom, Dad, what were you thinking? Seriously? So I'm 46, and the youngest is 40. And we were, I mean, it was nonstop. I mean, even one of them was, I think they call them Irish twins. Like they even had my sister before even my brother turned one. I was just like, wow, all right, Dad. So it's like it was just nonstop with kids, and but we were close, very very close, because we're all literally jam packed. We're blue collar worker, where my dad was in the postal service, so like he wasn't making bukus of money. He was not an engineer. We came from IBM town, but my dad didn't work in IBM. My mom got us into the school system because she was a cafeteria worker. At the time, I didn't really understand being at a private school, Catholic private school in upstate New York. Was a hard school. It's expensive, and because she was a worker, she did it for us to go to for free. And so when I look back at it, it's figuring it out, finding ways to be able to get what you want. That just because you financially can't do it, there's ways to do it. And I didn't understand that at the time. I really had no clue, but these were little seeds that I was planting, that they were planting in me that helped me later down the road. And so both my parents brought in different ingredients. They brought in different flavors to teach me work ethic, discipline. My dad worked two jobs because the one job at the postal service just wasn't cutting it. So he became a janitorial person. So he would work from 4 o'clock till 7 o'clock in the morning, and then jump into his change of clothes. And he would work the stamp person when you go there, the clerk. He'd work there from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, come back home, and he'd dive into getting in his car again and shipping us out to different practices and different school events and everything else. And you're young, you don't really understand it. You don't get what they were doing for you at the time period. And my mom, it was a cafeteria style, feeding us, getting us off to schools, lunches, and that was a process. And little did I know, process and discipline were going to be a key ingredient not only in my coaching career and helping other people, but it's part of life. And so I learned a lot as I grew older to understand where they were and what they were doing to me. Um, so that was really a backbone of my foundation of just understanding that type of stuff because I wasn't a good kid. I was a rebel raiser and just kind of like just did my own thing and beat it at my own drum and I did that for quite some time, in all honesty. But I had some foundational steps. One of them, I was 13 years old, and I wanted to go to work. And I'm in a rural area, farmland, and one of my defining moments was I was told no that I couldn't work because I was too young. And so I was just like, "What do you mean I'm too young?" They're like, "Well, you have to be." I can't remember if it was 14 or 15, but to get working papers back then, you had to get working papers so you could file your taxes or whatever. And I was like, really? I didn't accept it. So I called the town. Here I am, 13 years old. I called the town. I said, excuse me, could you tell me a little bit? I don't understand why I can't work at a farm. And they said, excuse me? I said, well, I'm trying to work at a farm. And I was told no because I'm 13 years old. And they say, well, if you work for a farm, that is considered agriculture. And agriculture will allow you to work at 13 years old. So, yeah, you can work. And I was just like, then here we go. Sign me up. And so that's when I discovered relentlessness. I discovered it not really at 13, but I wasn't accepting no. And that literally was another seed, another ingredient that was planted into my recipe of being relentless later down the road that you don't have to accept no. Good, bad, or indifferent, if you keep probing, you keep asking questions, you keep going forward and leaning into things, there's ways around it. And there's ways in a good way that I wasn't doing anything illegal. It was just, yeah, you're in agriculture, you can do it. And so I started working. I remember my first paycheck was like 27 bucks. I made it was like $3.25 an hour. And so yeah, so those were some key defining moments to start to show off with of some ingredients that I learned at youth going into it.
Man, that's beautiful. And I had no idea that you were from upstate New York for some reason.
Yeah.
But okay. And it sounds like your parents did their best to set you up for success, man. If nothing more than by the actions that, listening to you talk about your dad and how his work ethic. Um, but it also sounds like he didn't have that thing that is now called work-life balance.
No, no, he was a hard worker. My grandpa was a hard worker. Work's all we knew. Um, on how to grow and grind and just like Saturdays we were splitting wood, cutting in the deep like we own 56 acres in the forest. So like we were chopping down trees, cutting down wood, like we had farms and like farmland and I would carry 5 bucket gallons of water. People used to ask me when I was at school, like, man, where do you work out? What gym do you go to? I'm like, I work on a farm for crying out loud. Like there's no gym. It's carrying hay barrels, picking up like trees. It's like stacking wood. It's lifting calves and moving cows and just like that's what I did. And I didn't realize that until I did that for like 3 years, 4 years, and then I got introduced to girls and drinking.
Mm.
And I was just like, oh, what's this we got going on here? This seems a lot more fun than what I'm doing here, playing with cows at night. And so drinking started to become part of my life. And it stayed with me since 17. It stayed with me for a hard 20 years. And I played, I had fun, I did a lot of different things, but I got myself in a lot of trouble, and it started to be kind of a double-edged sword for me. My relentlessness flirted with police, flirted with parties, flirted with things I shouldn't be doing. Um, I ended up getting into. I had back surgery when I was 18, and it really put a big pause on my life. And I had to like really like I couldn't walk, I couldn't eat straight. Like I had to have surgery, and my L1S5 disc was. I had some really big challenges, and then my spine was all messed up, and so I was laid up for 6 months, put on about 30 pounds, and started drinking and started to really get myself in a dark position at the age of 18. Almost, I was on academic probation with school. Just kind of like was not in the right room, man. I was not in the right environment, but it was, and part of it was family, and I loved my family, but I was just in the wrong environment. And a buddy of mine said, "Man, is this what you want to do the rest of your life? Become overweight and drink all the time and just party?" And it kind of hit me, and I was like, like, I guess not. I never really thought about that. Like, you just really didn't understand that. And so I got myself back together again, started to get myself back into shape, started to build that relentless on the positive side of things. And I tried out for football and wanted to play football in college. Well, because I had back surgery, I had to get approved to have the surgery. And they're just like, well, you're not going to be able to play because of your surgery. And I was just like, yeah, that's not happening. And so they're like, well, you're going to have to go through a bunch of tests. And I had to train so hard in my core to strengthen my back to be able to do all this. And I was a free safety and wide receiver. And lo and behold, 6 months later, I was putting on a helmet and playing football. And I got to play at a college level, and nobody can take that away from me. And so I really enjoyed it, and I even got to a point that I was gonna, at the time period, Wayne Corbett, who played for the Jets, because I played at a Division III school, he started Division III to go play in the NFL, and so I went out for it and tried out for it, and to be able to say like, hey, I had an opportunity, had a very far opportunity to play for the NFL, but I gave it a shot. I gave it a try, and needless to say, I just didn't have the speed nor the agility to play at that level. But it was pretty cool to be able to be around that type of thing. But it was just somebody said no to me, and I was going to say, no, I'm going to do that. And that carried on, through once again from my youth to high school to college, going into my entrepreneurship of becoming a real estate agent, because I had another defining moment. Unless you got some questions, I can be good. You want me to keep going?
Brock, what's your next defining moment?
I have when people say defining moments to me, I'm like, which one? Where do you want? Because they had different chapters in my life, and they weren't instantaneous. So for those that are like trying to find your defining moment, they happen when you least expect it, and sometimes it doesn't happen for years. Years, because I played in football. It was 18. I did it all the way to 21. My next defining moment really didn't come into play until several years after that, when somebody asked me, they're like, well, why don't you become a real estate agent? And I went to school, I went to grad school. I became an assistant principal, was getting my principalship license. I was getting ready to get my doctorate to become a superintendent. I was on my way on that journey because I was told what you do is you grow up, you go to high school, you go to college, you get a job, you get married, and you work for 30 years, you retire, and you have a family, and then you die. Like, that was my vision. It was just like, well, I'm not happy being a teacher. I want to become assistant principal. I became assistant principal. I'm not happy. I want to become a superintendent. But there was education, needless to say, in the education world that I had to go through and do. So I was on my journey to go do that. And my chapters usually are every 2 to 3 years. And so when I was doing that, I got to a point that I was getting ready to get my doctorate, and one of the coaches that I was working with, because I was a football coach and PE teacher, weight trainer, he says, "Man, you should become real estate." I said, ah, I, I have no business degree. I don't have any entrepreneurship. Like, I'm a school teacher, for crying out loud. No clue. He's like, "No, you don't need it." I was just like, "Yeah, I can't. I don't want to go back to school for 4 years." He's like, "Man, it's only just like a 90-day course. You should try it out." So I said, "Okay." So once again, relentlessness comes into play. Adversity started to really take shape. Brother, it's not embarrassing, but it was embarrassing at the time. I failed the test 7 times.
7. The real
Yeah,
estate exam.
I failed. I had to take the class twice. Not only did I have to take the 90 days once, I had to take it twice. At the time period, one of my best friends, who was like a brother, ended up basically hooking up with my girlfriend, and I was devastated. And it really threw me in a whirlwind. It brought me back to my drinking again. We were living in a house together. He moved out. Here I am. I'm a school teacher trying to afford a house, and we weren't making a lot of money as a school teacher. And I had to pass this test, and it was at the very end, and I was just like, God, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Sometimes I get emotional about it because I literally passed the test by 2 points.
Wow.
And I know that I don't know where my life would be if it wasn't for those 2 points. I really have no clue. I think I'd still be a teacher. And so, excuse me,
No worries, brother.
those those 2 points, they transform my life. There's I wouldn't have what I have. I wouldn't do and go on vacations and have the lifestyle that I live, because as a school teacher, you're only making $40,000 a year. And, you know, as a real estate agent, I've been blessed and fortunate that 3 times in my life I made $100,000 in a month. So to say that to make $40,000 a year to transform this lifestyle was just like mind blowing to me. And so that's what really ignited me to never giving up, to continue to fight, to continue that adversity, that just no matter how many times you fail, just keep going. And so I kept on that path of just fighting. And I think the relentlessness was really the adversity, those ingredients were really building into me, where things were really starting to cook. And just like anything in life, you think you're in the driver's seat and everything's going really well. And 2007 takes place, and the whole market comes crashing down. The real estate market comes crashing down. And I was a late bloomer in the marriage world, and with kids, and I didn't have my first daughter. I got married when I was 34, and no, 30, 32. Yeah, because it's 24. Yeah. And so I had Brielle. Brielle was 30. I was 34 years old. And I started to make good money. And money started to control me. I started to get in the wrong rooms, which ended up being the wrong bars. And drinking started to really take shape. And my marriage wasn't good because I was drinking more. And I was a mess, man. I was going down a slippery slope. And I did that for 4 years hard. And I was living many lives, um, out late, sleeping on couches, just got separated with my wife for the first time. I've been separated twice. And the first time I was by myself. I lived down here in Lake Norman. So I mean I was living the lake life, living the boat life, living the women life, living the drinking life. And I was running hard and I was running in the wrong direction. But I didn't realize it until some really bad stuff happened to me. And I had to take a hard look in the mirror about this addiction that I was facing. And I didn't want to admit to it because I was just like, well, it's just it'll all work out. And it was just I was running for my life. I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to deal with all this drama, these problems, and it just kept escalating. And so the second time that my wife and I got back together again, we thought that if we owned a $500,000 house, we'd have a baby, like everything would work out. And needless to say, it didn't. Because if you don't work on yourself, the outside is just noise. That's like putting the wrong ingredient you know, in a recipe, thinking like, oh, we'll just add this little flavor, and then it just fizzles out. Not enough flour. It doesn't rise. And that was me. And so we had the baby. 3 months later, we're filing for divorce.
3 months after the baby.
3 months after the baby, we go through this. We start the separation. In North Carolina, you got to be separated for a year. My life went completely. I thought I had it bad then with failing the test and the 2 points and everything. Like I didn't know that that was God's way of being like, I need you. This has to happen because what I'm about to do to you is going to be something that is going to test you like no other. And boy, did it went after me. I had embezzlement charges against me because during my drinking time, my property management partner was embezzling money, which then put it onto my plate because I was the owner of the company, and so they filed a lawsuit against me because she was mad at me because changing companies. So I had a stack this big of a brown envelope with two attorneys from the North Carolina Real Estate Commission who drove from Raleigh to Charlotte, a 3 hour trip, and showed up in my office. Says, we need to talk to you. Her name is Maria. I remember it very well. She opened up the account and she started going through stuff. And she says, do you have an attorney? I said, I do not have an attorney. She says, well, I would strongly suggest you getting one. Once again, I'm a school teacher and a real estate agent, and it's 2007, 2009 when this whole thing started. And at the time period, things weren't really good. Trying to fast forward through the story here just to time purposes. I went through 2 years of a lawsuit in and out of court. I had no money, so I had to empty out my entire retirement for my school teaching. I had to drain my account. All 12 years of me working in the system just gone like that. $75,000 in attorney fees, payback fees, everything. At the time period, I didn't even tell my wife at the time because I was so like, I didn't know what to do. She had no clue. Then the whole divorce started to take shape. So they started digging into my finances, and then I had to answer through that. We have a 3 month old. Because I lost my license during this debacle, because when the attorneys came in, they're saying you're going to have to pay back what you embezzled, which I didn't embezzle, but because I was the owner, I had to pay back all the owners because money was being taken from security deposits, so I had to pay that back. And then they said we are going to what was the word? Revoke your license for 5 years. So I had to get another attorney to speak on my behalf. So I have a forensic attorney, then I have a defense attorney, and we got it down for 1 year. So for an entire year, I didn't have a job, couldn't make any income, and my house was being foreclosed on. Both my cars were repossessed. During the time period, during my drinking heyday, I didn't pay taxes for 4 years. So I had the IRS after me, about to go to jail. Somebody was mad at me because of what I was doing in my business and because I didn't stop doing real estate. I found a different way around it. I held my license. I went down to South Carolina because my license was revoked in North Carolina, not South Carolina. So my defining moment of when I was told agriculture when I was 13
Yeah.
came into play when I was 40 years old. And I said, well, if I can't do real estate in North Carolina, why don't I just go down to South Carolina? I drove 30 minutes south or into South Carolina. I knocked on the door to the Keller Williams office and I said, I like to, I'm revoked here just to let you know, but I like to hang my license here. Can I do that? They're like, yeah, that's not a problem at all. So I found a way around that. Well, then I had a bunch of haters come after me. So then they started filing complaints and they filed building permits with me because I was starting my own office. And I had to go through that. Then I had somebody so mad at me that they filed a DSS case against me and my kids. And I had to fight for my kids. And they said that I left my kids alone. And so that was the most gut wrenching moments of my life, saying that and you hear stories on Netflix on this stuff, and they're like, you can lose your children because you're not a father of who leaves their kid. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Man, it was hard. It was hard. I didn't know. I had police officers coming to my door at least twice a week, and they would come in all hours. And one of them came when my son was there, and they're like, I get all emotional on that again. But the sheriff shows up, knocks on the door, and I had no clue at the time. It was late too. It was like 7:30, and the police comes to the door and says, "Sir, I have to submit, or I have to subpoena you this." And my son looked at me. He goes, "Dad, why is there a police officer at the door?" And that was a really another challenging time. It hit me hard, and I was just like, because you think you think you're past your path, but you're still cleaning the street. You're still having to work hard because it catches up to you. And so I'm a very big believer of keeping my side of the street clean, and why I want to help so many people and why I do what I do is because many people give up. They really do, because they're just like, I can't win. It keeps coming after you. It keeps coming back. It haunts you for a while. And I just knew at that point I had to keep fighting. I got to some really dark days and I wanted to commit suicide because I didn't think I could do it. I had a tree planned out and what I was going to do. And it was hard.
What kept you here?
My kids, my kids, my kids are my everything. Sorry, man. I didn't know I was going to do this.
Bro, this is the sauce of life, man. This real stories that you're talking about, and you never know what story or what part of your story that you're sharing is going to impact someone else and change their life, bro. And that's just the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I appreciate your vulnerability, bro, because me personally, I desire to die without any knowledge retained in here. I
Mm-hmm.
want it all pushed out. And hearing you speak and understanding that there was such an extended period of time where life was kicking you in the teeth, there are many people that would have given up. I was a suicide intervention instructor, and man, there are so many people that could have faced half the things that you did, and they would have given up trying to start a shotgun or something like this, or actually go use that tree. So I appreciate the fact that you're still here and that you're vulnerable enough to share this. That's a lot to unpack, dude. Holy crap.
Oh, and by the way, I was 1 year in recovery in alcohol, dealing with AA stuff as I'm going through all this stuff where I was just like, I mean, I was in AA meetings every day, twice a day sometimes, because I'm trying to stop drinking and, all this nonsense is going on. And I don't have a house. I'm like, house hopping from my parents' house, and we were nesting. So like I would stay at our house with my kids, then I'd have to live with my parents, and then I have to go back and forth. And trying to make money. I was running 18 people on my team. I had 4 employees. I had a $26,000 per month overhead that I had to still afford between my business and my finances. And, and still trying to walk into the day. Like literally my mindset podcast show, this is when it was starting. And so to pretend that my life was all in order and things were good every single day, it was, hey, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? I'm like, like in the back of my mind, I'm like, what a fake you are. Like your day is nothing like what it is. But I knew that I had to show up because I knew at some point, and I say it to people many times, well, I know God put me on here on purpose to help people now. I was embarrassed like no other. But now when people say like, hey, I'm going through this, I'm like, I got you. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be at the bottom of the barrel and absolutely nothing's going your way. Not for a week, not for a month, not for a year, many years. Like I get that. And still to this day, I deal with situations from my previous life and my addiction and my drinking. Because when you make bonehead decisions and you're not thinking through clarity, there's certain decisions that happen that just don't get resolved overnight. They take time. I mean, I was over $500,000 in debt, 167,000 in IRS debt that I'm still working off today. I mean, I was about to have a federal lien on me if I didn't come up with $55,000 at one point. And it's not fun. And as you know, part of your story too, like when you share your story, like I'm like, it's gut wrenching me. I'm like, man, I can't. I'm like, I got nothing to complain about. I mean, yeah, it's IRS, but that guy just had the whole freaking shop just taken from him. This whole restaurant, just like boom. It's like, man, suck it up. You got this. And so
Turned
your
out to be
story
a
is
blessing.
just, what's that?
So it turned out to be a blessing, just like you're talking about these things from your life.
Yeah.
And that's just the thing. Where does that mindset come from that allows you to turn these adversities into advantages now?
It really, I think sometimes it comes to athletes, you hear them saying to prove people wrong. And I do. Like, there was 132 kids in my class. I went to a Catholic school in high school. I graduated like 117 in my class. One of the coolest things I get to see is old high school buddies and people reaching out to me like, man, look at you. Look what you're doing. I didn't think you'd turn out like this. And it's just like, it's such an amazing feeling because when I didn't even believe in myself that I would turn out to this. And by no means do I have it, and our podcast figuring it out. Do I have it figured out? I just have such a resilience inside of me that was planted at 13 years old from my parents that I don't take no for an answer. My kids, I don't ever want to see my daughter walk down the aisle of her wedding day with another father. I don't ever want to see my son having to high five another dad at a football game because I made bonehead decisions and because I decided to continue to drink and because I wasn't like that was more important than my kids. And so when I think of these things, I'm like, oh no, not on my watch is this going down. And not only is it not going down, but I'm going to have them live a lifestyle that is something that Eric Thomas talks about this. Like, I'm blessed and fortunate. My kids will always have whatever they need. Not to say like I give them everything, like trust me, there's some rules and regulations, but now I work for my grandkids. Like, what am I going to leave? What legacy am I going to leave for my grandkids so then that my kids can say, oh, that was from Grandpa Brock. Grandpa Brock was the one that got this for you. He set us up for this. And so
Yep.
to me, that's what gets me going. That's what gets me at 46 years old when my son wants to play basketball because he's 6. And in 10 years, when they're all playing basketball, I'm like, hey, Dad, you want to play? Yeah, I'm in. Who's got next? That's why I work out in the mornings. So I'm not an overweight person who can't. I was like, well, Dad, he's getting old. He's got to stretch. Like, no, I'm in, man. I'm ready to rock and roll. What do you want?
It's a
So,
beautiful thing, man. I love that mindset, bro. You tapped on so many different things throughout this conversation. And it's like, man, where to start with you, bro? Just from somebody listening and understanding that you are a person who you were talking, man, and it literally reminded, there was a scene that played in my head from American History X, this movie that I was shown so many years ago, where they made this guy like bite the curb and somebody stomped on
oh,
his head.
I
And
remember that too. I was just like, I remember that's so funny. Like, I remember that visual being like, oh God.
but that's the scene that popped into my head as you're explaining all of these things. And it's like life is just making you bite the curb.
Mhm.
And that's what it sounds like, is that life made you bite the curb so many times. And then, dude, to know that all of this is happening and you're going through a divorce at the same time, the IRS is crawling down your neck and you're battling to stay sober. How the hell? So you say that you went every day, sometimes twice a day, to AA.
Mhm.
I've heard mixed reviews about rooms of recovery. What's your take on it? Because it seems that it was such an impactful event for you.
I think just like anything, you have to have a starting block. You don't know what you don't know. Um, in the beginning, you feel alone, and so you need to be around strength in numbers. I think I'm a very big advocate or strength in numbers. When you used to go to bars and drinking, it was just like I always felt better when your fan club's there. You're with your buddy or your pal. It was very seldom would you ever go in by yourself, at least for me. So when I went into AA, that's how it started for me. As I grew into it by year two, it wasn't for me, and so I decided to personally to remove myself from it. And I could share if you want, but that's literally, it just wasn't for me. And so I decided to go in a different direction. I started to pivot and I started to focus more on myself and my mindset because I had the foundation at that time that I'm like, okay, enough about talking about it. It's now to take action on it. And so that was a very deciding factor that I just didn't want to talk about it every day and bitch about it and complain about it. I wanted to take action now. And so that was my drive of like, oh no, I'm going to do this. Oh no, I can make that money. Oh no, I'm not any different than anybody else. I'm going to do it. And so that started to really take shape with me of doing the action steps with it.
Bro, it literally sounds like, and if you haven't copyrighted this yet, you should, but it sounds like that every day of your life is another 2 point moment.
Mm.
It sounds like all of these successes that you have now, even in the face of some adversities that you're still dealing with, it's like, I passed today by 2 points.
Mm.
Um, I'm literally sitting here, and it's just like the admiration that I have for you and the contribution that you give back, because you could have easily given up. And there's so many times that you didn't. And now I have your book in front of me, by the way, Turning Scripts
Mhm.
into Conversations. So, Turning Scripts into Conversations, the moment that I heard you mention the title of that book, in my mind, because I had been thinking about a mentor of mine that I helped him ghostwrite his book, and he talks about the scripts that he had throughout his life. And those scripts would be things like, I'm not loved, I'm not worthy, I can't do this. Or, he questioned various parts of his life. What are some of the scripts that, positive or negative, you decide, but what are some of the scripts that helped you get to where you are now?
I think at the time period I didn't realize this, but one of my one of the things that I always say to myself, if it was easy, everybody would do it. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Another one is success only comes before work in the dictionary. And those were my two main components that really always pushed me to doing extra, go the extra mile. The power of one more with Ed Milet. The more that I started to work on myself, the more exposure I got to other people in my growth internally. And then in about 3 years, I met a spiritual mentor, Justin Ford, because majority of my life I was just doing it by grit and grind. Once God came into my life, I mean, I was Catholic. My mom was in the convent. Like I had those moments. I knew God. I knew my prayers, but I didn't know God in here. I knew him up here, but not in here. And when that transition took place, I honestly, and it's going to sound a little crazy, but I feel like I'm unstoppable now. I feel like once God, like I don't drive the bus anymore. I sit in the passenger seat. He drives, and I hear him saying, "You better buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride." And I'm like, "I'm in. I'm in. I don't try to do it anymore." And that's why like people always like, "Man, how do you handle the highs and lows?" I'm like, once God entered into my life, there's really if if I can go through all that without him, what can I do with him?
Right.
And so that really has been the main theme that has transformed my life. Like that book. I mean, I like my English teacher, like they would laugh at me. Like I couldn't write to save my life. And one of the things about my book that I hear people say is it sounds like I'm talking to them
Hmm.
because I did that because that's me. I didn't want it to be like the normal traditional way. Like I want it to be like I want to pretend that I'm talking to you. I want to pretend that I'm having a conversation with you because so much in life we play around with this thing right here and not this right here.
Yeah.
We don't listen to understand. We want to get our own 2 cents in, and then if we're not, we're just on our phone and we want to just like text me and do this, and we miss out on relationships. And the most important relationship I was missing out with was my conversations with God and asking Him. And because I had such limiting beliefs all my life, where now, I mean, we were having conversations today on our leadership of like, who feels like are we at our potential? Like how much more potential do we have? And I felt it. It's just like no, like I'm in. Like I want to grow with this. And I was just like, it felt like coaching again. It felt like the team was buying in, no matter how hard it looked. We're in. And I think it always starts as the leader. Like I'm always like, all right, let's roll up our sleeves. I'm just Muhammad Ali says it. How do you, they would say, like, how many sit-ups do you do? He goes, I have no idea. Like, no idea. Don't you count? He goes, I don't start counting until the pain hits. And that's kind of how I look at things. Like, I don't know, like me working, like work's just part of my normal day. Like doing this and doing this, like it doesn't really start until like, all right, we got some challenges. I really got to start thinking now. I really got to start working. And that's just kind of how my conversations have been in my life of pushing myself to the next level of listening into other people, muting out the noises around me to focus in on where I need to do, but knowing God has been a huge influence in my life. I mean, last 3 years, it's like I feel like I've just started. I mean, I've only been sober and working on myself for the last 8. I actually celebrated in 2 days on November 1st. And
Wow.
so to be able to be like,
Congrats.
I'm just starting. Thanks, man.
That's my son's birthday.
Really? Yeah,
Yeah,
November 1st,
he's turning
2024.
7.
And I started on 2016.
Rock, there's a book that I read called 3 Feet from Gold.
Ah,
Um,
yes.
yeah, it was I'd heard about it from Bob Proctor,
Yep.
but one of the things mentioned in that book was about this guy who meets one of his role models in the financial world, and the guy says to him, the role model says to him, I have these people I want you to meet. So we can move your life forward with whatever. And the guy's like, oh, absolutely. And he's like, so meet me here, whatever, and I'll introduce you to my friends. But then the mentor asks, would I want to meet your friends? What
Mm.
I heard and took away from that was, would the person that you want to be want to meet your closest friends? You've mentioned several stages in your life. Would the Brock back then be able to sit and have a conversation with your 5 friends now? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no. It was, I look at some of the, Facebook history, they tell you like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, like, and I look at that and I don't even recognize I recognize myself, but I wouldn't even want to talk to that Brock. Brock was very narcissistic. I say it many times, my drinking has changed, my thinking has not. So I'm still narcissistic. I still have these traits, but I've learned how to control them. I've learned how to. Eric Thomas talks about controlling the beast. There's a beast within me. I know when to let it out and when to keep it in. And the greatest compliment is like when people say like we probably need to get Brock involved in this, because that's my way of like we need to unleash his gift that God gave him. Like he's really good at talking and negotiating and keeping it in between the lanes. See, I still had the beast 10 years ago, but I couldn't keep in the lanes. The beast was all over the place doing everything else, running from the cops and doing this and going here and just doing crazy stuff. The beast still exists within me.
yeah,
It's just I fine tuned it. So there's no way in hell I could talk to those people because they wouldn't make sense. I'd be like, wait, what? Because we're just in two different levels of our life now.
yeah. Bro, do you ever struggle when, given the amount of perseverance and grit and tenacity and all these other things that you have in your life, do you ever struggle when the people close to you, you don't have to share any personal stories, but when the people close to you, you see them repeating mistakes that they don't have to, or they're not taking in the advice or taking advantage of the opportunities they're given? What makes you keep like pouring back into them?
It's hard. Um, I guess I could say like there's certain family members I don't talk to. Um, Derek Jeter, Michael Jordan, two autobiographies I've read, and they've had to separate themselves. And I have family members I've had to. There's times I can't talk to my mom because she wants to bring in that. I said, Mom, that's not me. It is not my story to share. You can go talk to somebody else, but I'm not I'm not going down that. Yeah, I got some close loved ones. Drama is more exciting to talk about. It's not me. I remove myself from the room and then I become an a-hole. I become antisocial. But for me, I don't want to be part of that anymore. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying the door is completely closed on certain people. I mean, I look at A-Rod and Derek Jeter. Like they didn't get along at all for a period of time, and now they're freaking co-hosts on one of the World Series and is the guest panel. And I'm like, wait a minute, how that happened?
Yeah,
Because everybody grows at a different pace. I'm not saying it's just you got to grow, and when you grow and you see things differently, it's just like, oh, I got you now. But it's not my job to. It's not my job to. You got to carry your own. You got to go on your own path. That's the path that God gave you. My brother's one of them, and he's got to take his own path. No matter how hard you try, he's got to go on his own journey. And just because I'm an addict and he's an addict, we have different journeys on how we want to grow together. And he'll eventually get it or he won't. Um, but that's just part of life. You gotta always, unfortunately, you be selfish, but in a different way. Because if I don't take care of myself, I can't take care of other people. I'm not doing a leadership call with freaking amazing people like you and Rebecca and Chad and Cullen and Todd. Like that doesn't happen. if I'm doing my own thing and kind of like, wait a minute, he's saying that he's not, but he seems hammered right now.
Right. That's
He's
true.
all over the place. I can't even understand the guy. Like he doesn't even show up. So yeah, I mean it's hard, but it's
A
in the
lot of
book.
people have the perception, man, that people like you and I are just born successful, or we've been given some advantage over everyone else, with all of these things. They don't I hear this messaging repeated time and time again where they look at the success of a person and there's a little bit of hatery going on there,
Oh
but
yeah.
there's a misconception. It's like, you don't know what it took for me to get to this place right now, and you don't know what it takes for me to get out of bed motivated and ready to go, to show up, like you just said, being
Hmm.
able to show up. um oh, dude, we're already at 51 minutes.
I know.
Just caught the time up in the corner, and I'm looking and I'm like, whoa. Because it's easy to get lost in conversation with you, bro. It's easy to do that because you're dropping these nuggets of wisdom, but you're real and authentic. And that level of authenticity is something that a lot of people are afraid of. They're scared to open that closet door and let the skeletons fall out, not realizing that that's where the power is. Like, you
Mhm.
regain control over your life when you can step up and say, I messed up. I drank again, or I cheated, or I did this or that. That's awesome. My neighbor is outside with a snowblower. Literally, yeah, I appreciate that. Well, we have about 6 or 7 inches that got dropped on us this morning. And so,
Wow. Yeah, nothing here, and so far Wendy has not showed up yet. So good old
hey, no worries.
Leo is still quiet right now. So
Brock, man, I just need to tell you, it's becoming a thing now as I close out interviews with people, where I realize that they need their roses. I want to make sure that I'm giving you your roses. And the fact that you came on here today, this has been like a ideal 90-10. So 90% of the conversation was you, 10 minutes me asking questions or clarifying different things. I appreciate the vulnerability and the openness, the authenticity, even emotionally showing the world that, this thing isn't easy, but also being able to say, hey, I've been $500,000 in debt and I came back from it, or I'm coming back from it. I've had the IRS want 167,000. I don't remember the exact number, but whatever that number was that you said, and you're still going through it. And yet you're still showing up every day and providing a platform for others as well, like myself, to be able to stand on and help impact and change people's lives. And I'll tell my audience that Brock is genuine in helping to try to grow the audience, not for monetary gain, but for the impact that it'll have on your life. And I appreciate that so much. I appreciate that if I were asked about the 5 people closest to me, you'd be one of those people that I would be like, well, there's Brock, and there's this person, that person, this person. You know what I mean? So
mhm.
thank you for that, brother. I have 2 final questions to wrap this thing up, because we try and keep the interviews the same length, roughly.
Yeah.
Where can people contact you if they want to get a hold of you?
So I do the easiest one is brockzvan.com is the easiest way to get in touch with me. You get to see me as a speaker, as a dad, as a real estate agent, and a coach. A simple contact buttons on there, a little bit of blurb about me. You can also hit me up and look me up on YouTube. My life story, we put in a video, and it's a 12-minute blurb, but we hit the highlights on it. So my YouTube, you can check me out on my YouTube channel, Brock Zevan. Coach, you can put that in the right there in the YouTube link, and I'll pop up there. It's the first video that pops up. Those would be the 2 main places. You can also check out our Facebook page, our private Facebook page, Brock Zevan's Mindset Motivational Coaching. It is there. It's a private page, so you can feel free to reach out to me that way as well.
Appreciate that. I want to make sure that man, I don't see you any differently than an Ed Milet or an Eric Thomas or a Tim Grover, who trained Kobe and Jordan. like the impact that you have now and the impact, the compounding effect of what you're doing now. We won't even know what that is until 10, 20 years from now, when you and I are like old dudes. You
Yeah.
got me about 2 years, but final question for you, bro, is if this were the last time that you and I talked, or the only time that someone from our audience got to hear you speak, what would you want us to walk away with?
Don't limit yourself on what God could do for you. Because when I did that, I stayed average. And when I started asking God amazing things, crazy things, it was like he finally said to me, "You're finally getting it, buddy. You're finally getting it. Put me to the test. Challenge me." And so I would say to you and to anybody, like, don't limit yourself to what you asking God. Ask him anything. Because the moment that you engage conversations with him, it literally will transform your life. Because I can tell you to work hard all day, work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It gets old. It gets tiring. When you ask God for things that you can't even imagine and ask big, you become unstoppable. You really do. So that's what I would leave you with.
Beautiful, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you again for your time. Brock Z Van, thank you for being on the Sauce of Life.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you having me.